All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We got a really interesting request for this one.
Yeah, this should be a good one.
We've got excerpts from a book, looks like it's called Heart Rate Training.
Yeah.
And basically, one of you listeners wants to get the most out of their workouts, right?
Oh, who doesn't, right?
Exactly. But without getting lost in a bunch of complicated data. So we're going to dive into this book and try to figure out how to use heart rate monitoring to really personalize your exercise plan. I mean, the whole point of this deep dive is to help this listener understand how to make heart rate monitoring work for them.
Absolutely. And the book starts off by making a really compelling point. It says that by paying attention to your heart rate, you're getting this like direct, instant feedback so you can adjust your training on the fly and like really tailor it to your own body's response.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool about this. It's not one size fits all,
Right.
like it's about, figuring out what works best for you.
Totally. And what I thought was really interesting right off the bat was how the book connects specific heart rate zones to different types of training.
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
It breaks down fitness into these four components: endurance, stamina, economy, and speed.
Right.
But the key is that you can't just jump into any of them, willy-nilly. They're meant to build upon each other, each within its own heart rate range.
Makes sense.
So, for example, like if you're working on endurance, right, like you're thinking long, slow sessions, you should generally be below 75% of your maximum heart rate.
Okay.
But then if you want to bump it up to stamina training, where you're pushing harder but still in control, you're going to aim for between 75 and 85%.
Gotcha. So each zone has its own purpose.
Exactly.
I actually really like table 1.1 in this book. It lays out all these zones, easy, moderate, hard, and shows you how they connect to like how hard it feels, your pace,
Yes.
what your body's using for fuel,
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
and even like what aspect of fitness you're actually improving. But one thing that kind of surprised me was the book points out that how comfortable you feel at the same heart rate percentage can be totally different depending on, say, if you're running versus swimming.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that. We're all different. Like your genetics make a huge difference in how your heart responds to exercise.
It's true.
Stuff like the composition of your muscle fibers and the size of your heart. It's why you really can't compare your heart rate numbers to someone else's. It's just not apples to apples.
Definitely.
And this is a good place to talk about resting heart rate versus maximum heart rate. So resting heart rate, RHR, that's like your baseline.
Right.
And typically it goes down as you get more fit. And get this, figure 1.2 shows how it can fluctuate day to day based on how hard you've been training. It can actually give you clues about how well you're recovering. Now, maximum heart rate, or MHR, that's like the highest your heart can possibly beat. And that doesn't actually change with training, even though it's the number we use to figure out your personal training zones.
Interesting. So it's like a fixed point.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now here's where I thought things got really fascinating. The relationship between heart rate and VO2. VO2 is how much oxygen your body's using. The book explains that both of these go up when you're working harder, but not always at the same rate.
Yeah, they can kind of diverge.
Yeah. And table 1.2 gives a rough idea of how your percentage of MHR lines up with your percentage of VO2 max. But then things get even more interesting when you look at real-world data. Like tables 1.3 and 1.4 show data from actual athletes on treadmills and bikes, tracking their, effort level, heart rate, and VO2.
Right, they're measuring all the things.
Yeah, and they're trying to pinpoint the anaerobic threshold, which is like the point where your workout shifts gears and you start to really feel it.
Yeah, it's that point where you're like, okay, this just got real.
Exactly.
And what the tables show is that this threshold can happen at totally different heart rates and VO2 levels, depending on the person and the activity.
Right, which makes sense if you think about it.
Totally. And if you want to visualize this, figure 1.3 does a great job of showing that the connection between heart rate and VO2 isn't a simple straight line. Especially when you get into those higher intensities, your heart rate might level off while your oxygen consumption just keeps going up.
So basically, it's complex but super interesting, right?
Yeah.
So the takeaway here is that heart rate is a really reliable way to track your progress when you're working out at a consistent effort. If you can do the same workout at a lower heart rate over time, that's a huge sign that you're getting fitter.
Absolutely. It's all about efficiency.
Figure 1.4 and table 1.5 actually show this really well. They've got data from before and after training, and you can see the athlete has a lower heart rate for the same workload and a higher VO2 max. So they're clearly getting more efficient.
And remember, the more oxygen you use, the more calories you're burning.
Exactly.
It's all connected.
So if we take a step back, what does all this mean for our listener who wants to optimize their workouts?
Well, I think the key is that when you understand heart rate monitoring, you're giving yourself a powerful tool to really tailor your training. It's like having this personalized gauge that shows you exactly how your body's responding and adapting to your workouts.
Exactly. And that's what we wanted to get across in this deep dive, right?
Yeah, it's not just about the numbers, it's about what they mean for you.
So before we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to ponder. Now that you have a deeper understanding of this, what aspect of your own training do you think heart rate monitoring could help you improve the most? Maybe start tracking your resting heart rate each morning and see if you can spot any trends that connect to how you feel. The more in tune you are with your body's signals, the better you can tailor your training to your own unique needs.
It's all about listening to what your body's telling you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We'll see you next time.
See you later.